I never thought that one day I'm going to have to come out publicly on social media and speak about something like this. This is the story of my marriage to Muhammad Hijab and how his actions that he claims are permissible by Allah have completely destroyed my life.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. In this video, we're going to be looking at Muhammad Hijab and his secret marriage to his second wife, where he made her into, how can I put this delicately, kind of like a prostitute you don't pay, I guess is kind of the thing here. In short, Muhammad Hijab secretly got married to his second wife, because in Islam it is permissible to have polygamous marriages. I don't think that is a marriage, but they can have multiple wives to just one man, but not the other way around. Muhammad Hijab obviously had some ideas. He had some ideas about where he was going to go in life, and he thought, you know, it'd be great. Things are going well for me. I'm going to secretly marry another woman, not tell my wife, not tell anyone actually, and then I'm going to not give her any kind of provision. It's going to be what is Islamically called as a Misyar marriage, which is where a woman can voluntarily, and totally not coerced into it, give up some of her rights as a Muslim woman in the marriage, in the nikah, because reasons. I mean, I'm not really sure why a woman would do that, in all honesty. Kind of seems like the whole point is that you would want those protections and those provisions. But for whatever reason, Muhammad has managed to convince this woman, who goes by the name of Aisha, not to have those provisions and instead to freely give them up as part of the marriage. So now Muhammad has his first wife, to whom he has children to. Now he has a second wife whom he occasionally meets in hotels for spontaneous hookups and then leaves, because that's what husband and wives do, apparently, according to Muhammad Hijab. Now, this wasn't something that happened immediately. This obviously took a long time for Muhammad Hijab to convince Aisha, this poor woman, who has a daughter of her own, I believe, who was previously divorced, to give up those rights for basically sex in what is effectively now like a love hotel, because that's the only purpose of the hotel. And Muhammad doesn't even pay for the hotel, by the way. I think she does. So she basically pays to go to a hotel to have sex with Muhammad and then walk away. And then Muhammad will go back to his other wife until he wants to rendezvous with her again at some point. Real classy for Muhammad Hijab. But that is coming from the same guy who once said this.
If you look just at the Quran, you will get the indication that you can have sexual intercourse with a 5-year-old. The reason why it's haram to have sexual intercourse with a 5-year-old is not found in the Quran at all. If you just read the Quran, it is halal, it would be halal to have sexual intercourse with a 5-year-old. Chapter 65, verse 4. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us who you can divorce and who you cannot divorce. And then he says, وَاللَّائِ لَمْ يَحِدْنَ. وَاللَّائِ لَمْ يَحِدْنَ. And the ones who had never been pubescent before. And by the way, this is very important, yeah? I want all Muslims to be aware of this. The reason why we don't have sexual intercourse with 5-year-olds and 6-year-olds and 7-year-olds or whatever is not because of puberty. Wait a minute, what did you say? It's not because of puberty, because that verse in the Quran actually says lam yahid. They never had puberty before. You can't go around that. The Quran doesn't say anywhere in the Quran that the woman has to be pubescent. I dare you to find one verse in the Quran where it says you're not allowed to marry someone based on harm, or you're not allowed to have sexual intercourse based on harm, or you're not allowed to marry someone based on puberty. Get me one verse in the Quran which says the woman has to be pubescent. No. You know, in the Quran it says حُرِّمَتْ عَلَيْكُمْ أُمَّهَاتُكُمْ. It says you're not allowed to marry your mum. It says you're not allowed to marry your sister or your auntie. Where does it say you're not allowed to marry a prepubescent? I'm looking for one verse that you can say, you pinpoint it and say this is where it says prepubescent marriage or whatever is not allowed. So if you're Quran alone, you're steered towards pedophilia, a severe type of pedophilia, a wife abuse, a severe type of wife abuse.
Yes, Muhammad Hijab has publicly defended the idea that if you were to look at the Quran alone, you would get the impression that it endorses a severe form of pedophilia. Muhammad Hijab's words, ladies and gentlemen. But just a few days ago, a channel by the name of Beyond the Veil, and I'll actually link to their video because I think it's important that people watch this. I'm going to just be covering like a shortened version of this. There is so much content now about this that's been leaked. It's all over the place, and Muhammad Hijab is doing damage control, and I'm here for that. I'm here for that, Mohammed Hijab. When you do damage control, I'll make more videos. Oh, this is brilliant. Anyway, on a serious note, I actually think what Mohammed Hijab is doing is awful and probably one of the most genuinely, and I don't use this word very often, misogynistic things you could possibly do to reduce a woman to nothing more than a sex object, literally. You don't even pay for it. You make her pay for it, and then you get upset and act like the victim when she comes publicly out to call you out on how you've treated her and what you've done to her, her child, and her family. But there's a YouTube channel called Beyond the Veil that, as far as I can tell, is a Muslim channel that tries to uncover some of the more dodgy sides of dawah. The D in dawah stands for dodgy, it seems. And he just records this and he just makes it public and says, hey, we need to address this and this problem. I think that's a notable goal. Well, he made a video on this because it seems as if Aisha, the second woman in this love triangle, came forward to publicly explain her story, what has happened, how Mohammed Hijab had convinced her to marry him, only to then say afterwards, actually, kind of appreciate it if you just stay in the hotel and I come to the hotel, we do a bit of rolling around and then I'm gonna go. That's marriage. But enough talking about it, let's watch the video.
Fast forward, he started giving me hints that he's interested in getting married to me. He spoke to me about himself, his family, his childhood, his preferences. He told me I am not like your ex-husband. Whatever you see on social media, don't worry, because I'm very good as a husband. My life was extremely hard, and he knew that, and I am his neighbor. I couldn't understand why he was giving me all those hints every time, but he never took that step. Whenever I found a suitor that I started considering to introduce to my father, it was extremely hard for me to navigate that by myself.
So straight away, she says that, look, she's a divorcee, she was previously married, she's now divorced, she's looking to find a suitable male to get married to. Mohammed Hijab is in the background and he's giving her these signs, these hints that he might be interested, but he's not making that actual move. Presumably because he's shy and doesn't have the backbone to do that. No, I'm only kidding. Probably not that. He was probably too busy explaining to people how the Quran condones an extreme form of paedophilia. He just didn't have the time. What I do appreciate about the culture that Aisha comes from is that she's taking marriage seriously and she's going about it in a more structured manner and making sure her father is involved in just giving some advice and looking at these potential males and saying, hey, that guy don't think he's committed enough. That guy I don't think he's stable enough, and that guy's Mohammed Hijab, so don't go for him. Otherwise you'll be living in a hotel.
Mohammed Hijab used to come back again. This cycle continued a few times. At that stage, I didn't know if he was divorced or not, until he asked for my hands. Formally, he told me, would you like to consider me as a husband? He told me it's going to be polygyny. At that stage in my life, I wasn't ready for polygyny. When he proposed to me, he told me it's polygyny. I asked him to give me some time to pray istikhara. I wasn't sure, but when I thought about it, I thought he's a good man. I think from what I see and from how the scholars are praising him, he is going to be capable of taking care of a big family. He is qawwam, he is a guardian, he is knowledgeable, he is religious, he is pious, and he is praiseworthy. Further to that, he was pushing the idea and reassuring me that I'm going to be very happy with him. He reassured me so many times and told me that I should never worry that he's not going to be keeping this family safe. He told me that he's ready and he's going to be taking care of everything.
One thing you'll notice from her testimony is that she has a very high opinion of Mohammed Hijab. She thinks the world of him. She looks at it both from the messages that they're having together and the things he's saying to her, which again, very flattering. If you're divorced and you're looking for a man and all of a sudden a guy with a large social profile comes out of nowhere and says he's interested in you, you can see why that'd be very flattering. Not only that, but she's looking at the things that she's reading about him, the fact that many people praise him, call him a scholar, and call him all these things. It's very interesting to see how she could be swooped up in that. And it's not even just from an emotional point of view, but from an intellectual point of view. Like, this guy's ticking every box because it seems like he can provide, it seems like he's established himself in a larger community that can vouch for him. So why would she actually have any concerns? She probably didn't see the video I showed you earlier, but other than that, she probably shouldn't have any concerns. And lots of other videos she probably hasn't seen. Or Twitter posts. Okay, maybe there's a lot she hasn't seen, but she has no reason to see it, right? She's only going by what she sees publicly by other Muslims who generally are favorable to Muhammad Hijab. Muhammad is using his perception in order to influence this woman and to gain a certain level of control over her so that he can convince her to have a Misyar marriage, to give up protection, to give up financial protection, certain rights to places to live, like the right to have a home, giving up all of this because she's thinking that he really must be one of the best Muslim men that she can marry.
Was able to keep his family together for a very long time with his kids, and he memorized the whole Quran.
He has not memorized the whole Quran. That's no.
He's in the front line of the da'wah. He's praised. There is a testimony of hundreds of scholars around the world who are praising him. He was placed in a position of marriage counseling, divorce in the Islamic Council.
He was even in an Islamic council given certain roles over marriage and divorce. Like, the guy literally can say to her, I actually am accepted in the position of authority regarding marriage and divorce.
There were so many things. It was not for me just like the emotional element of it, because he expressed his feelings to me. But I had feelings for him too. It was not just that. For me, it was a very big, rigorous process that I took, based on which, at that stage, whatever promise he would make, I would trust him.
So now Muhammad Hijab has got this woman's trust. He's got Aisha's trust. Not Aisha, the 9-year-old bride, but rather Aisha, Muhammad's secret second wife. She trusts him completely. She is bought into this idea that he's a great guy, he's able to provide for her, and he's going to marry her, even though he's already got a wife anyway, and he already has kids with that wife, and he's already very busy doing everything related to his dower. He's somehow going to have time to have yet another marriage with another woman. Sure, that's really going to happen. Of course it's not going to happen.
All of a sudden, he stopped everything. He said, I think the best thing for me to do for you right now is that I wouldn't go ahead with this marriage. I was confused, especially after he opened up about his feelings. He spoke to my father. He's been pushing the idea forward. I had feelings for him too. I tried to get explanations from him, but he didn't give me any reply. So we stopped contact. It took me a very long time trying to recover, and we stopped contact completely. After like 8 months, he contacted me again. He apologized and said I couldn't go ahead with the marriage last time because I had personal reasons. I am back, I am here now. Let's go ahead with this. I am ready. Don't worry, we're gonna go ahead with this time. Let's just make things quick. And he was rushing up the process.
This, to me, just reading this, sounds like a classic tactic from people who are narcissists, who are controlling in relationships, to try and get the other person to make concessions out of desperation for losing everything. So in other words, Muhammad Hijab makes this woman think that he's the best guy ever. She will never find someone like this who's got hundreds of scholars like praising his name. Where's she going to find that anywhere else? She's likely not going to. She knows that, and Muhammad Hijab knows that. Muhammad Hijab then says, look, I'll marry you, I love you, da-da-da-da-da, whispers sweet nothings into her ear all day long, and then suddenly and abruptly cuts it off. As soon as he thinks that he's got that kind of emotional connection established, he cuts it off, throwing her into a whirlwind of what on earth is going on, only to then come back later and wants to rush the process. Muhammad Hijab knows what he's doing. That would throw anyone into a whirlwind. That would make anyone panic, thinking that this guy could really leave me. I need to marry him right away to get this nailed down so that he doesn't leave me. And of course that puts her in a very vulnerable position, because now he can say, great, please sign the dotted line where you have very little rights and you're going to spend most of your time in a hotel bed. And of course she'll still agree to it because she's in an incredibly anxious state of mind because you were playing games.
Obviously, I told him you have to talk to my father again. And like, it was quite hard this time, especially that he told me he's not ready to make a big wedding back in my country. I told him that's okay. He said, I am not ready. I'm not able to go and meet your dad in person for personal reasons.
If I was that woman's dad, I would have smacked. I would have made it very clear what my thoughts on this guy would have been, because someone who treats your daughter like that is disgusting, in all honesty. And this is such a, just hearing it back, it's like, of course he doesn't want to speak to your dad, because his dad isn't emotionally blindsided like you are, and his dad can see the trees through the forest, and he knows exactly what it is that you're doing, because he's also a man, and he knows what men are capable of doing to very vulnerable women who are divorced and have children and who are looking for nikah, they're looking for marriage. If Aisha's dad turned up to Mohammed Hijab's house unannounced, I imagine he would get up and he would jump out of the window and run. because he knows what would be coming, right? He knows he's accountable and he's got a lot to answer for.
And I trusted him. He said, let's do this over Zoom.
Guys, I'm so sorry, but I didn't know this was a thing actually until catching up with all this stuff. I didn't know this was a thing. Apparently it's not such a thing, such a bad thing anyway, in certain Islamic communities to have the nikah, the wedding, over Zoom. I can't imagine people getting married over Zoom. I think getting married over Zoom is like basically it's one step down from getting married in a fish and chip shop in my mind. Like that's kind of, or like a back alley. Like there's the you got like getting married in a fish and chip shop, getting married in a back alley, getting married over Zoom. You're not even physically there. You're like, don't get me wrong, maybe there's some situations where you have to do it over Zoom because there's like very practical reasons. Yeah, sure, I get that, but to choose to do it over Zoom, like you could have a ceremony, you could have family there. No. I want to be able to play Call of Duty, switch over and join a Zoom call, say I do, and then switch back to Call of Duty. No, that's everything about that is wrong. And imagine Mohammed Hijab trying to explain to Aisha's dad that he wants to marry her over Zoom. And Aisha's dad is like, what? You want to marry my daughter over Zoom? And he's like, whoa, we can do Microsoft Teams if it's better. Google Meet, I'm happy with that as well. MSN. We'll have a traditional MSN Skype call. It'll be very traditional, very old-fashioned. I'm sure Aisha's dad would love that. Yeah.
It's actually halal.
Oh, it's halal. Oh, it's fine then. Don't worry, Aisha's dad, it's halal. Did I forget to tell you it was halal? Why are you yelling at me? It's a Zoom call. It's a halal Zoom call. Totally permissible by the best scholars of Islam. We're gonna get married on Microsoft Meets.
And you just have to convince your dad. But he told me I'm not ready to show my face.
I'm not ready to show my face. Yeah, I wonder why. This is basically why he's doing Zoom, because he's terrified of Aisha's dad. He probably wakes up in sweats in the middle of the night thinking what would happen if Aisha's dad ever found this hotel.
I was confused. I told him my dad is not going to agree to this. After we consummated the nikah, gradually the new rules showed. He's not going to speak to my family ever because he's Islamically not obliged to, he said. It's not necessary. It's going to give us more freedom because he's Islamically not obliged to.
Imagine telling your wife that you're not gonna speak to her mom and dad because it's not required. It's not Islamically necessary. Just because I married their daughter does not mean I have to talk to them or even acknowledge that they exist or even have a Zoom call with them. Doesn't need to do any of it. So wait, if he had children with this woman, with Aisha, would he say that it's not Islamically necessary to have his children have anything to do with their grandparents? I don't know. Maybe he thinks that's not Islamically necessary either. But yeah, I've decided I'm gonna try this one when I have to spend a few hours with the in-laws. I'm just gonna say, look, my wife will just be like, hey Chris, look, my parents are coming around for a couple of hours, and I'll just be like, look, no, wife, it's not Islamically necessary for me to have anything to do with the in-laws. Not even a Zoom call. She'll be like, Chris, what are you talking about? Islamically necessary. You're not a Muslim. For the next 2 hours, I am. Inshallah, I am a Muslim for the next 2 hours. It is not Islamically necessary to spend time with the in-laws. And then my wife would have to explain to her parents why Chris has decided to become a Muslim for the next 2 hours.
Your sister is just going to be jealous of you. She's older. She's never been married before. You're going to get used to this situation. It's halal. There is nothing wrong with it. Why are you making things difficult? Don't worry. I'm going to try not to get you pregnant.
Yes. The Islamic pull-out method. This is kind of suspicious, especially given that she mentions in this interview she actually does want children, more children. She already has a daughter, but she wants more kids. Muhammad Hijab is bragging that he's going to do his best not to get her pregnant in this sex marriage, which suspiciously looks like prostitution. If you're marrying someone purely for sex, you don't give them anything. You're not emotionally invested. You have nothing. And you're literally just going to meet them up for casual hookup sex in a hotel. I think you've made her a prostitute. And that's adultery. And he has the nerve to say, don't worry, I won't get you pregnant. Okay.
This is a real relationship. I'm going to keep this like this for the rest of our life. I told him, are you going to change this for what you promised me at a later time? He said, no. This arrangement works the best for me, and I have no intention of changing it. As soon as he said that, I asked for divorce.
Everything, really. I know I'm making light of this because, in all fairness, I think it's important to mock people that do bad things, and Muhammad Hijab is one of the kings of doing bad things at the moment, it seems. But the truth of the matter is there is a woman here who has, what I imagine, been through an emotional roller coaster with this guy for the last few years, trying to figure out whether or not he is who he says he is, and finally she's come to the realization that she's consummated a marriage with a guy who could care less about her family, who could care less about her needs. It's a Misyar marriage, so she actually has very little rights, and I think it's dawning on her that she's being used for sex, and I think that's absolutely disgusting, and she should flee from that relationship, and she should get her dad and give him Muhammad Hijab's address. She should get her dad and let him have a lovely long conversation with Muhammad Hijab alone in a locked room. I think that would be very beneficial to everyone involved. One thing Muhammad Hijab is known for is that he talks a lot about there are certain things that you can Islamically do that actually most Muslims, let alone people who are non-Muslims, would find abhorrent. And he talks about, we all know that Muslim men can have up to 4 wives as long as they treat each wife appropriately, but that's just one side of it. The other side of it is you're not under any obligation to tell the other wives that you have another wife or that you're planning or you're seeking to get another wife. You don't have to tell them, because in Islam, one of the provisions is you can lie to your wife if it resolves conflicts and makes her happy or content. And in that kind of line of thinking, well, it kind of makes sense. If telling your wife that you're gonna have another woman and you're going to marry her, so now you'll have 2 wives, that's obviously going to make her feel like crap. So if you lie, so again, there's not telling her the truth and keeping it a secret, but no, I'm not talking about that. I'm saying actual lying. Muhammad Hijab says you can actually lie. If she asks you, do you have a second wife or are you seeking a second wife? He can lie and say no for the sake of preserving relations with his existing wife. This is an Islamically allowed practice, according to Muhammad Hijab. And I'm not going to lie, I've read the hadith, and that does seem to follow from what he's saying. He also talks about Misyar marriages, which is again the kind of marriage he had with Aisha, where she has very few rights. These tend to end in divorce. They don't have a particularly good success rate. It's something like, 80, 90% or something silly end up in divorce. And they tend to be used for sex. It is just a way for men to have sex. That's all this is. It's an Islamically approved way to commit adultery. Just keeping it real and saying what it is. He even gave a talk about it, and he even made a short about it, letting the world know. And this Muslim guy does a review of it, so let's watch this.
I've gotten people married in 1 minute, in 60 seconds, because I was busy. Honestly, someone comes to the office and say, listen, I need to get married, this and that. I say, listen, I need to go to the toilet, so this is going to have to be a quick one. I tell you the truth, I've even gotten people married on WhatsApp. And now there's a difference of opinion on the matter, but I was driving and this guy, he called me, he said, look, I'm going to commit haram. He goes, I've got 2 witnesses ready on this WhatsApp group. can I add you and you do the thing? So I brought them in. I said to the woman, I said to her, listen, this guy's probably going to leave you. I know this guy. And he was like, what are you doing? You're here to try and make things easy for me. I said, but it's not fair on the poor woman because we know that you're a pernicious man. You're a khabis. And I said, what's the mahar? And the guy said, you don't want to hear this one. This was before McDonald's was on the boycott list. He goes, I'm going to give her a meal in McDonald's. I said, sister, don't do this. I said, at least have something. No, she said, I don't mind, I don't care, whatever. It happened, and he did, in fact, divorce her, unfortunately. But I said, I told you so, and that was it.
Yep, he deleted it because he knows how bad that looks, especially given what he's actually done. Muhammad Hijab took the theory and applied it in real life. At least he's consistent. You got to appreciate people that tell you they're gonna do evil things and they enjoy evil things, and then, surprise, surprise, they actually go out and do evil things. They weren't just all talk, they could actually walk the walk as well. Now, this is kind of blown up. It's probably got a few 100,000, if not more, views at this point. People are talking about Muhammad Hijab's secret marriage, and Muhammad Hijab is obviously not very happy about this, so he's made a response. Great stuff. Let's check it out. Let's just go to his YouTube channel, and it's not there. His response video isn't there because for some weird reason he decided to make a response video on a new channel that he obviously had made himself. And not only that, but the video is an AI video. He doesn't even use his real voice. He doesn't put his face on the video, doesn't show himself. He uses an AI voice to basically read a pre-prepared script for damage control, because he's that much of a coward, to try and basically just defame Aisha and to mock and ridicule her and to cast her into doubt, to make himself feel like he's actually the victim in all of this, when that couldn't be further from the truth. So let's watch the delightful response video that Muhammad Hijab couldn't even be bothered to publicly appear on.
In an age where misandry often masquerades as moral vigilance, it seems for some that the mere accusation against a man is tantamount to guilt. If anyone doubts the legitimacy of the obsession narrative or suspects it to be merely a tool for Muhammad Hijab's self-justification, then I urge you to listen closely to the following.
At that time, I look at this guy as a god, because I trust him enough. I was like, I didn't see at all anything wrong that's going to happen. This is for me like the story of the marriage of Salama with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
As evident here, she openly commits a grave act of shirk, of the kind that places one beyond the pale of Islam, by declaring that she saw Muhammad Hijab as a god. While she may in some measure be excused by ignorance, such a statement nonetheless reveals either an alarming degree of obsession or a profound psychological instability.
Yep, you heard that right, ladies and gentlemen. Because she used the expression, I saw Muhammad Hijab like a god, in other words, I saw him as a very profound, very high up, very highly valued person that I had put my life and my trust in. That's apparently an evil, horrible thing to do. She basically means that she thinks hijab is an actual god, and she's renounced her faith in Allah and she's not a Muslim anymore. That is actually what he's trying to ask you to think. He's basically saying, let's put our stupid hats on for a moment and forget how metaphoric language works, poetic language works, idioms, expressions, and just pretend that whatever she says has to be meant literally. So when she says, I saw Muhammad Hijab as a god, obviously she's now a polytheist. Yes, very clever, Muhammad Hijab. You have the emotional intelligence of a small child.
What will be shown includes the nature of their communication, specifically the text messages she sent him.
Oh, we got text messages now. You know this is going to be good. It's going to be very spicy. She's going to be like saying all sorts of crazy stuff, and yeah, let's watch. Now, this is where I think he's been cheeky. I think he's basically clipping a particular point in their relationship, and this particular point I think is showing is the point in their relationship when he's backed away and she's like, why are you backing away? And then he's playing the whole, oh, you know what, actually, not sure if we should get married. Don't know, I mean, I'm kind of just looking for boyfriend-girlfriend like relationship, which is apparently how he described it. A sex relationship, again, how he described it. Don't know if that's kind of for you, polygamy is difficult. He's basically threatening to take away this offer of marriage, which of course is going to send her absolutely mental, as it would anyone, because there's been years of relationship here where he's been flirting back and forth with her about the possibility of marriage. Very disingenuous, Muhammad Hijab. Here's a weird part of the video where he decides to call her so he can hear her speak, which doesn't sound kind of stalkerish at all. Like, why would you call her? I mean, according to Muhammad Hijab, this woman is stalking him, which, by those text messages, that's not what I get. Kind of looks like you're intentionally making her anxious by dangling a little bit of a hope of marriage, but you've got to accept and be my secret second wife who I'm just going to have sex with. Kind of looks like he's doing that, but now he decides to call her so he can hear her voice on the phone for reasons.
Hi.
Hi?
Is it Barry?
No. Who's this?
Oh, where is Barry? This is Barry number.
No, I think it's the wrong number that you dialed.
Oh no, it's Barry number.
Totally not stalkerish behavior whatsoever. If this woman is basically trying to ruin your life, why are you calling her, Mohammed? Maybe he just misses the sound of her voice, It's been a while, he wants to hear her beautiful voice. I mean, after all, she is his wife. But either way, he got his friend to call her and say, is this Barry? Not gonna lie, that's kind of comedic. But anyway, it's just dumb and weird.
I wanted to have kids. I wanted to take care of myself. I needed guardianship, me and my daughter, because I can't play both roles.
As viewers can observe, the voice and accent clearly match that of the individual in the video. The following points can be shown without a doubt from these messages. 1. She is persistently initiating contact with Hijab. She proposes a Misyar-type marriage to him, in which she even acknowledges that she can be divorced if things don't work out. She states she is willing to give up on equal rights. Hijab in response warns her against pursuing this kind of marriage. 2. Hijab explains to her that heartbreak is very likely if she continues down this path. At no point does Hijab express any interest in this woman. 3. The messages from this woman are long, emotional, and copious.
So he wanted to basically say, this proves that the person you're hearing is the person I have in my phone, hence these messages are from her. Okay, great, Mohammed. No one really needed to know that anyway. And also it just proved that you were in a long-term conversation at the very least with this woman, and you were also talking to her about a polygamous marriage. So you've actually just verified a ton of stuff that Aisha has already told everyone on that Beyond the Veil channel. That wasn't very smart. I wouldn't be surprised if he actually deletes this video, because I think it's going to come across very poorly for him. In fact, if you look at the comments, it really does not look good. It kind of looks like people are, they think that he is not doing too well here. I want to show you just one more stupid thing, because this is kind of like the level of desperation that this guy is trying to go to defame her. You know how I said earlier, she used the expression, I saw Muhammad Hijab like a god. Everyone understands that metaphorically. Muhammad Hijab wants you to believe she became a polytheist for some reason. Well, listen to this.
And uses phrases such as shaking hands with the devil.
That if no one would like to get me help with this, I would go to the most vile of the vilest of the... I'm in a public place, right? I have no problem even being hand-to-hand with shaitan to getting this out.
She goes as far as to request a mubahala, while simultaneously expressing a willingness to shake hands with the devil, which naturally raises serious doubts about the sincerity and validity of her request. Conclusion. This is a neurotypical woman exhibiting obsessive tendencies who has acted in a desperate and groveling manner.
Desperate and groveling manner. Neurotypical woman. Everything, the way he phrases everything is intentionally to hurt people. And it's also very much framed basically like, it's kind of like he wrote a political speech, but he decided to make it really emotional and twisted to hurt people. It's kind of a weird skill he has there. Muhammad Hijab is trying to ask you to believe that when she said, look, I'm willing to meet him in person, even if I have to shake hands with Shaitan, even if I have to shake hands with the devil, I'm willing to meet him in person. He wants you to believe that she using the expression shake hands with the devil, shake hands with shaitan, is like, I don't know, she believes that Muhammad Hijab is literally the devil, and she's okay with shaking hands with literally the devil, therefore she is not a real Muslim. That's what he wants you to believe from that conversation. No one with 10 brain cells thinks that she actually believes Muhammad Hijab is the shaitan in a literal sense. Rather, Muhammad, this is called expressive language. You use metaphors to express how you feel about people, but it's intentional. Like, he knows full well what she's trying to say. He's just expressing it in the worst possible light because he's now defaming her, and he's being a coward and not showing his face, and he's not even showing his actual voice, but it's obvious from the way this is written, this is very much Muhammad Hijab. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, there is a ton to this. I will put some links down below if you want to continue looking into this. I think the fact that there are public dawah Muslim figures in England, in Britain, who genuinely think this is okay and they put this into practice is disgusting. And I think the woman should get everything that she is owed and is due from Muhammad Hijab for having put her through this absolute nightmare for the last few years. And I think Muslims should hold him account. I think Muslims should say, look, you are obviously not a pious man. You have abused your position of trust in order to influence women to get sex in what is an adulterous relationship. He wanted a Misyar marriage. He obviously coerced her into it. Obviously. To any, like, you literally have someone who is looking for a relationship, needs a relationship, and a guy who has 100 scholars who will back him up. And you're telling me there's no power imbalance? Come on. I don't believe that for a second. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was useful to you. Stay away from Islam and stay away particularly from people like Muhammad Hijab who want to get you in hotels. Instead, look at the virtues of Christianity, where we don't have things like Misyar marriage or Muta marriage. Marriage is between one man and one woman, and divorce is an incredibly serious disaster in the eyes of God. It's not something that we take lightly, and marriage is a very serious thing in Christian belief. A man is held accountable if he decides to abuse a relationship and see other women. We consider that adultery. It is not fair to the woman or to the man, and that is one of the many reasons why we should consider Christianity over Islam in the West and in the East. But thank you all for watching this video. God bless you all. I hope you have a great day, and I will see you in the next video. Take care. Bye bye.